time opening. We have an eye, sort of a nostril, 2 teeth. One of the teeth has a small cavity. Close call, folks, but I think we got here just in time.
Presented by Maria Menounos and Kevin Undergaro. This is Anatomy of a Movie. In-depth discussions and breakdowns of various movie titles. And now that you've seen the movie, let the dissection begin.
There we go.
There we go.
Throwback. Did you know
What's
that
up?
this is the 30th anniversary of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles?
I did not know
Not
that.
today specifically, but just the year in general.
I knew that you would know that, but I did not know that.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Obviously, we are doing the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, the 2014 film. It has been 30 years, by the way. Also, a quick shout out. We did interview Michelangelo from the movie, so on Anatomy of a Movie, with the actor being Noel Fisher, so definitely check that out.
Sure.
I'm really excited about this movie. I'm going 100 miles an hour, but let me introduce Demetri Panos.
Hello, movie fans. How are
Let me
you?
introduce John Comerford.
I'm only going 50 at the moment. But
All right.
I'll
And
catch up.
Let me get into this movie.
Okay.
Let me start off with these couple of things, right? We always do overall impressions. Here's my overall impression. I've never seen a movie be picked so apart by critics for the lamest things in the world. We were just talking about this about
Not that the movie was lame, but the things that they were picking apart were lame. Is that what you
Yes.
mean? Okay, I wasn't sure. Okay.
You know, in the sense, right? We'll talk about all these different things. I actually enjoyed this movie. I was really nervous for it because of everything that was coming up. But you know what? I actually did enjoy it, and I know you guys, for the most part, enjoyed it. But there's so many lists of like top 10 things wrong with this that just ruined Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, down to like the Pizza Hut wouldn't be in Brooklyn. And all these different things. Like, okay, that's your criticism of this movie? That is your number one critic? Come on. So
yeah.
I am just baffled by this movie, and I'm willing to step up to bat for this movie and say, you know what? Is it On the Waterfront or Schindler's List? No, but you know what? It's fun.
Yeah.
It's an end. Sorry, it's an end of the summer popcorn movie that could have been a hell of a lot worse. I mean, for me, I'll say it didn't make me angry, and I was pleasantly surprised at that. So, you know, and when you're coming into August, that's usually a dumping ground. So August, September. And
But
it was a little
usually
bit better
sometimes you
than-
get one, like remember Superbad came out in August, and think of how great that was.
The original Expendables came out in August. Yeah, no, I mean, occasionally you'll get that movie. I don't know that Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles is that movie, but it could have been a hell of a lot worse.
Which isn't a rigging endorsement, but it's I here's the thing. I don't understand all the nitpicking stuff. I mean, one of the reasons why I really wanted to do this one is because, Phil, you have an affinity for this series, and I was aware of it when it first came out as a cartoon series, all that kind of stuff. I hadn't seen any of the prior movies. But because of your appreciation for it, I said, well, I really want to do this because I want to see what it's all about. And I knew nothing of all this craziness with the fans and what they hated, what they wanted to make sure, why they hated Michael Bay. And I didn't know any of that, which is great. So I just watched the movie, and this is all right. I laughed. I enjoyed myself. I realized it's not a movie for me, but the 50 kids that were in the theater with me loved it. They went crazy for it.
I applause. In
yeah.
the theater that I was in.
They were
for all
jumping
the
up
kids
and
that
down.
Were there.
Jumping up and
mind
down.
you, note not many girls. It was mostly
in mine, it was actually there was about 50 kids, and half of them were girls, and they enjoyed it just as much as the guys.
Wow!
So
But it got applause, and I agree.
Yeah.
I was actually shocked and amazed Phil's knowledge of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles,
and they were laughing throughout. They were excited at the end of it. They were being Donatello. They were doing the whole thing at the end of it. So
and I love I went into it thinking it was 2 hours, and I don't know. I saw the running time somewhere at 2 hours, and I was like, okay, this will be good for 2 hours. And then as I finished it, I was like, wow, that felt really short. They really knew how to move this thing along. And then I found out it was an hour and 40 minutes.
Yeah.
And I give them credit to that, because it could have been like Transformers, where it was 3 hours long, and they could have tried to stretch it out, but they didn't do that. They didn't try to do that, and so I can appreciate it on so many different levels. And especially a movie of this elegantly, you could see where a studio would have been like, it needs to be 2 hours.
Yeah, no,
Way to go for that.
absolutely. And I think that is one of the things that helped. I think 2 hours could have been a stretch.
Yeah, I think that
Might
would have been a
just
stretch. Yeah,
little
that
bit
would have been.
much.
I don't think it would have been able to sustain itself. As it was, I thought it was paced well.
Yeah.
I mean, I didn't feel like it was really lagging at any point. And once it started really kicking in, when you actually had the guys come on the scene, was it 15, 20 minutes into it or whatever it was, I was going, okay, let's get to the guys.
Yeah.
But once they got in, I was on, and it was fine.
Yeah, and that's another. Again, we'll kind of slow things down, and we'll dissect, as we say, all these different things a little bit further. But in terms of that, where it's people say it's April O'Neil's story versus more of the Turtles, I get that.
It starts out that way, but it
but I don't
doesn't really
mind it.
end that way. So, and I don't mind it either because, I don't know the series. So I liked coming in there and learning about them as the main character learns about them because I don't know them.
Right.
So it worked for me because I was being introduced to them completely new in a sense.
I mean, it's in the same way like Peter Pan ultimately is more about Wendy.
Okay.
Well, do you not think so? Okay,
I
Peter
know what
Pan
you're saying.
stays in Neverland.
Right.
He never
Right.
changes.
Well, yeah, the
Right.
only arc is hers anyway.
Right.
So yeah, he can't.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah,
And
no,
so,
absolutely.
So there's. I mean, you could argue that the Turtles have somewhat of an arc.
No,
but-
I think they do. I think they have more of an arc than she does. What's the arc? She doesn't have an arc. She starts out being the main character, but by the end of the movie, there's nothing. She's no change in her. There's no character arc. There's no real character
Well, she
development.
doesn't have to go. She falls in love with the guy, and she doesn't have to go for the story.
Yeah, I know, but I didn't. Yeah, you don't even have her really. It's an afterthought. The guys say, "Hey, thanks for not, telling our story," but it's
Right.
not like she goes through any kind of internal struggle not to do that or anything. You don't really get to see any of that. It happens off camera. So they, they
Do
really
you
make.
want that in a Teenage Mutant Ninja?
No, that's
I mean,
that's
like,
my point. I don't think you
know.
do. I don't think they cared. I don't, especially because your main audience is not that interested in that. It would have been much more interesting for me viewing it to have that kind of character development. But I didn't ruin the movie because I didn't have it. I was much more interested in the guys having their moments, just when they're holding up the tower and he's going on and on about they're having their psycho angst happen. I thought that was kind of fun.
sorry. Yeah.
Exactly, that was ridiculous. It reminded me of Almost Famous in the airplane when they're going down and everybody's confessing their inner turmoil.
And then
See,
it's
and
just
I was thinking the Goonies and Chunk.
There you go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then in the third grade,
Exactly.
yeah.
So, but by that time, I was much more interested in them than April
Right.
anyway.
Yeah.
So I didn't really miss that.
And I didn't mind the reboot, so to speak. I mean, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, born of the comics, became huge.
And the comics were way darker. Like even the 1990s series of movies, they were a lot more lighthearted. If you watch the first one, there was complaints that it was too violent, but it's actually very, like if you watch it, it's still very comedic. And the comics were way darker than that.
Absolutely. And it was all about this ooze that got dropped,
Yeah.
that fell down the sewer and it changed them and all that stuff. I don't mind how they tweaked that a little bit. In fact, I find it funny how they, in the movie, I have to say it was purposely allude to what the original concept was going to be, and that they be aliens.
Right.
And that one got
Oh
really-
yeah, this
when you-
particular movie you're
yeah,
talking about, they were
this
going to have the
particular-
turtles be from a different dimension. and
Right, they were going
yeah.
to be aliens, and then the
yeah, a
fan
warrior
backlash
race. Yeah.
came out,
Yeah.
and then the Michael Bay hating that they, that was all his idea of apparently.
And no, it wasn't. He
no,
said,
I know,
Oh, but that's
I'm
what
just
they were saying. It was
su-
his idea.
It's such
Yeah.
blind hatred.
I know. Yeah.
And they did end up changing it.
Right.
And then in the movie, that they're Will Arnett's character says, "Oh, what are they? Turtle? What are they? Aliens?" And Dave goes, "No, that would be stupid." And I was like, "That's really funny." Like, that's nice. Wink, wink. Nod,
But
nod.
it does point to how avid the fans are on this thing.
Crazy.
They don't. I mean, and you're a fan of it. You didn't. I mean, I don't. Did you have any issues with the changes and creative issues? And
I think this movie obviously is catered. Nickelodeon bought the rights, and obviously, there's been, to my knowledge, three or four reboots of the TV series. Right, we played the theme song from the original. Then there was the kind of in between middle one, and I think this is the third incarnation, if I'm not mistaken. And it's done by Nickelodeon. It's more CGI versus I like the original animation of it through cartoon. Then the second one's a little bit more advanced, and then the third one is the CGI. And so it's catered to that and has a history towards that. And so, it's one of those things like, you have to let the next generation be able to enjoy what you've enjoyed. But so am I going to watch the cartoons of this one? No. But this movie in particular, based off of perhaps some of that history from, the new series of cartoons from Nickelodeon, and obviously that's the backstory of how it got made, is because Nickelodeon owns the rights. I enjoyed it, and I could get behind it.
But at the beginning, admittedly, because
I was very nervous.
Months ago, you were extremely nervous
when the news came out about an alien race,
right?
Although in the original series, I mean, they went to Dimension X right off the bat within the first 10 episodes and whatever else. So, in terms of the TV series, they've done crazy things. So they could have been possible and still worked. But I'm glad they didn't have to go that route. And I like the tie-in to April O'Neil.
Yeah, but you had also made reference to Shredder.
Right.
And because everybody was upset about the costume change and all the knives and all this,
You know what? And these are all the things that everyone was nitpicking right. And again, this movie was so nitpicked right off the bat.
Yeah, I mean, you can't even get out of the gates.
And I was nervous because I didn't know how to feel. I was reading the stuff, and then I was seeing the stuff, and it made sense. And I was nervous, but then seeing how they did it, the fact that Shredder was a man, he was, a teacher to the villain. And then it was just this elaborate costume that he added onto himself to become more powerful. I was like, okay, you know what? I can get behind that. It's not outrageous.
I didn't know any of that was different than the origin story, so I was like, fine. I was completely okay with it from a guy that has never seen it. So it worked. It all worked for me.
Yeah, I mean, Shredder for me in the movie, I actually thought as a villain he was okay.
He was okay. That for me was a weak point. But
yeah, I couldn't it would have been nice to have more backstory as to why he was so evil.
Wasn't at some point? This is what I don't know. So I had read somewhere, I heard somewhere that Eric Sachs, is it?
Yes,
I'm getting that right. Wasn't he in some incarnation he was Shredder or something like that? Or and I was going, what? And I was told that Shredder was added on later as the villain because of fans' concern about it or something. And I was like, what? They were so responsive to some fan criticisms that I think they added things in at the last minute that I don't know.
Here's again, because it has such a history, and perhaps because I know it, but I appreciated in the movie they talk about the foot, and the reason, this is the first time I've heard that they give an explanation of why they're called the foot, right? It's always been like a laughing matter. In the first movie, April O'Neil says, yeah, I know it sounds like a funky club for podiatrists, but in this sense, because they stomp over everything, and I like that line. And also when he's going through, and then there's the imagery on the wall, and Eric is explaining, the plague and things like that. It was the first time we got a backstory on the foot, because it's always been Orokusaki and the Master, and sometimes Splinter, was a mutated form of the human being,
right?
That then teaches the turtle. Other times he's, in the first movie, he's the pet rat of his master who learns by watching, which is equally absurd.
What do you mean?
And in this movie, he learns by reading a book, so why not? But I think they were able to take that, and the people who know the franchises, they expanded on some of this stuff, and I appreciate how, again, the first time I've really gotten an explanation of the foot, to my knowledge.
Yeah, I just wish there was a little bit more, like, what made Shredder.
What was his raison d'etre? I don't understand.
He's just a bad guy to be a bad guy.
Yeah, exactly. That's the part that was missing for me.
But I didn't mind his costume. I mean, if you're going to have a villain, who's supposed to go up against four people, you have to really make him almost invincible. Like, you have to make him formidable.
I don't understand I didn't read that controversy. So they didn't like the costume because it was different than the original?
When they first started throwing pictures out on the internet. Of Shredder.
Okay.
They thought he was too robotic.
Oh, gotcha.
Too
many knives, too many... And it's like, okay, just wait and see the movie. And he didn't bother me. I mean, it was fine.
I became thinking that I was crazy because the creators, Kevin Eastman and Peter Laird, they said you're going to enjoy this movie, and this could quite possibly be the best Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle movie. I was like, is that hyperbole? Are they just saying that because, they're nervous and they want people to go see it? But, I don't know if it's the best one, but it's a good one.
Yeah, it's a good one.
It's the best one I've ever seen. Let's put it that way.
And
it's the only one you've seen.
And Well, the other thing too is in the 90s, I mean, Turtles like way leaped off the comic book page because after that first movie, I mean, there were Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle tours.
They were everywhere.
Like they were, you know,
huge.
Yeah, they were huge and selling out arenas with kids. They were on Oprah. They had a whole episode on Oprah, and it was just insane that Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle frenzy that happened in the 90s.
And it was worldwide too.
It was huge. And you couldn't escape the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Hence, when I went to a screening of it, and again, I wasn't a big fan of the cartoon. Like, I wasn't watching it regularly. I knew about the comic book. And when I went to the screening, I just walked out going, okay, that was funnier than I expected it to be. I liked the way that the Turtles looked, and I think it was amazing that they were able to have the flexibility and the mobility to move the way that they did. And I walked out going, okay, that was a better movie than I thought it was going to be. And unfortunately for me, it just seemed that quality-wise, you would figure you would parlay that and make a bigger, better movie. They seem to
in
go
the 90s.
other way.
They cut the budget every time.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they made them shorter.
Oh, because did they not get the response that they'd want?
No, the first movie was amazing. Partly the second one is the way it is because of the response that, you know, there was a lot of controversy about how much violence there was in the first one, so they had to cut back on that. And, you know, and I think that started the downward spiral. You know, and Megan Fox was on record saying this, that and she said it multiple times, one of the reasons why I think people fall in love with turtles is because there's a turtle for everyone.
Yeah,
you can identify, you know, whether it's Raphael, Leonardo, Michelangelo, Donatello, it doesn't matter. You can identify with someone.
Yeah, sure.
So, and I think that's what really made it popular. And, you know, how many, you know, especially for me, I remember the groups of kids, you'd be like, oh, no, I'm this, and whoever you were. You know?
In your group, you were... There was always one of it. Yeah, sure, I get that.
And the toys were, the marketing too. The toys are very accessible. They had a ton of action figures for them. I played the video game. Which one was it? It was the.
There's been so many.
Well, it was. If I'm correct, that those may have been the days of the Super Nintendo. So I had the Super Nintendo of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, which was a fun game to play. Yeah, I mean, hey, I was part of that frenzy as well. It was just interesting to see, like, you know, you had the first movie that comes out in 1990, March 30th of 1990. It does $25 million opening weekend. Now, for that movie, for any movie, actually, in 1990, for a movie to open up 25 isn't bad, with a total cum of 135 million, which, again, this is New Line, who, you know, they didn't, budgetary wise, you know, they kept it on the cheap. So for a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle movie to do 135 all in domestically, that was a sleeper hit. But then the next movie comes out, that one opens up to $20 million, and that opened up around the same time frame. But it came out the following year. And I think that could have been another thing, too. I think they were rushing them, you know, just to capitalize on their popularity. So on March 22nd, 1991, we got Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 2.
And that's before digital editing, all that. You really had to, like, rush that. Yeah. Like, nowadays, you know, they're turning these things out a lot faster, and that's still debatable. But
sure,
it's a lot tougher
it's a
in
lot.
those.
And that one topped out at $78 million. And then part 3, which was that one called Secret of the Ooze?
No, Secret is the second one.
What was the third one called?
It's just called 3 because it's the one where they go in the past in feudal Japan.
Okay, and that one opened up to $12 million.
Ooh.
And topped out at $42 million. Opened up at the same time. That one opened up March 19th, 1993. So they took a year off. You know, they exploited the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle World Tour, selling out at arenas near you, and then they come back, and I believe 3 was the one with Go Ninja, Go Ninja, Go.
No, that was the
second one too.
That was
See, okay, well then that explains why the third one did. You know, you can't overcome that. You cannot overcome Vanilla Ice and Go Ninja, Go. It's hard to do. So, you know, and then they take a break. It makes sense that there's going to be a reboot. They always remain popular with the cartoons. So, it makes sense. And I had no necessary problem with it. And like I said, I didn't hate the movie. It was, it was fine. It worked. It did remind
I think it did exactly what they wanted it to.
Exactly.
It rebooted thing. It introduced it to a whole younger generation, and they captivated that audience. I don't know that one kid that saw it said they hated it or thought it was stupid.
Yeah. I mean, I want to talk about casting, and I want to talk about all these other things, and we could talk about the lead up to the production forever because there's such a obvious, we've been alluding to it. It's such a rich.
My God.
There's more so than any other movie that I think we've done. Even to X-Men.
That's what I was surprised about because I do my media blackout. I only started reading and started studying about it after I'd seen the movie, and then I couldn't believe all the controversy that went into just the making of it, and how much input the fans had, and how much they were tweaking and trying to, because you're serving many masters there, trying to keep the old people interested, not the old people, I'm sorry, the original fans
core.
interested, and then try to bring in a whole new crop. Yeah. And it's a challenge because, your sensibility as you get, I'm not interested in the same thing that a 10-year-old is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
let me ask you, and maybe I didn't ask you beforehand if we could talk about this, but someone on the production design end of things.
Yes, I know a few people on the production side. As a matter of fact.
How is that? I mean, they must have been on this project a long time.
A long time, absolutely, and some of them were even doing some of the reshoots, and they had many things to tell me about it, none of which they want to come on and talk about.
That's too bad.
I mean,
it had its challenges, obviously, from inception. Not only just the pre-production and trying to get the script written, but all the other stuff involved, and then even on the production side when I was shooting that, and then actually on the post and having to do reshoots, and all I can say is from all the people that I talked to that had actually been involved in it, it was kind of a mess. It was a challenge to try to get it all together, and they had a lot of problems trying to get it done. And so that's another reason why I wanted to see it was going, because I had heard all the stories behind them. Going, well, how did they put the thing together? Yeah. And when you saw it, you can't tell on the screen all the difficulties they had. Well, that's not true. Some you can tell, but for the most part, they put together a story that works. I mean, whether you hate it or like it, and whether you have energy going in about how it should be this or it should be that, if you just take it as it is, okay, it works. It's not the best movie, but it is a good popcorn movie. Yeah. It's made for the audience that it's really made for. Loves it, and those of us who don't know anything about the franchise can accept it and can go, okay, I get what you did. That's all right. And even those who can just allow it to be what it is rather than what they want it to be, I think will like it.
Well, and let's, it's interesting because when we talk about liking and expectations, number one, going into that weekend or going into last weekend when this movie opened up, the expectation that it was going to be fall around mid-40s. Mm-hmm. And Paramount would have been really happy with mid-40s. Right. Okay? So anybody either had it at like high 30s, low 40s to mid-40s. Yeah. Movie comes out and does $65.5 million. So that's $20 million over. It's
50% more.
Yeah, and anybody.
So that's how good your analysts are.
Well, it's that and well, like you said, somebody had to like this movie.
Exactly.
And when you talk about things like, on Rotten Tomatoes, again, we're going to see a disparity.
Critics hate it.
Critics hated it. 20%.
Yeah.
20%. The cinema score was a B.
Right.
Now, for cinema score, those are people who go out usually opening night, not necessarily. I know they had Thursday night shows, but they're usually in the theaters, which is the most crowded. So there could be some out there on a Thursday, but it's mostly Friday. And I'm not sure they're allowing. I'm not sure they're giving like the little checkoff sheet to kids.
Yeah. So 18 over.
Right. And so a B for a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle movie, I don't think it's that bad. I mean. So, and then going into this weekend, or, going into its second weekend, people are saying when you make 65, again, we'll bring this up last week as we talked about Guardians of the Galaxy, and I said, what a normal drop-off. That I was spot on, and then reading all the, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles surprised everybody. And again, if you go 50% drop from 65, you're looking at, 32?
31.
Yeah, 32, and that's 50% would be a really great hold. So let's say 55 to 58, maybe a little higher, but it could still be the number one movie again this week, even with if it's in the 30 to 35 range, it'll more than likely, unless a movie comes out and surprises.
It'll be interesting to see if any of the negativity that it's receiving is gonna really hit hard in terms of the numbers. Because I don't hear a lot of people saying what we're saying. Like it's a better movie than what everybody's saying.
And it came out at a great time, because this summer has been
what else is
sorely lacking for kids movies. I know we talked about How to Train Your Dragon 2.
Mm-hmm.
There was Maleficent. I'm not sure if I'm missing another animated movie.
Rio 2, but that was very early on.
Rio 2, okay. There was big gaps when there was really nothing for kids. And I had mentioned this when we were talking about Guardians, and potentially Guardians was going to fight off Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles to be number one. But listen, it's on Nickelodeon, so they get the built-in audience there. The kids all know about it, or the boys do, and there was nothing out this summer.
And also, I think that there's a lot of debate on this part. You could say that the fact that they had challenges in putting the film together worked to their advantage, because then they had to keep delaying their open date, and they were saying, well, it's because we don't want it to compete with other movies, and especially in like Transformers. That's another Michael Bay production. So, and I don't think it was that at all, because knowing the other side of it, they had to keep doing reshoots. So, and that which pushed them off to August.
Right, and correct me if I'm wrong. It had the 4th of July.
It had a number of release dates.
Yeah, and one of them I thought they pushed Transformers up.
Yeah.
To give this more time, but look, it ended up being the right decision for them, and it paid off.
I mean, it's one of those things, especially because it is the first movie. If it was a follow-up movie and you set a release date for that and you keep pushing it back, it's a little bit tougher. But the second movie, right, should be like a TV series, the second season of a TV series where, like, okay, you kind of have a groove, you know what you're doing.
Right.
With this movie, you know what? I mean, people always get baffled by reshoots and things like that, but I can actually appreciate it, the fact that, you know, you're never going to get it right the first time. And even Woody Allen, right, for as great as he is, he's constantly doing reshoots, not to the high budget that perhaps this did, but he's doing it to, to make sure that the movie that he does put out is what it should be, and audiences can like it.
Yeah, and in some cases, too, when that word gets out about reshoots, it's sad, because it ends up putting a notch, like you end up getting this negative connotation from the press, okay? And I will bring up last summer's big hit, World War Z, which was plagued. I mean, they reshot the entire last half of the movie pretty much. And man, the negative press that came out from that. And that movie ended up, when you watch the movie and you hear about what the original ending was supposed to be, you go, Jesus, I'm glad somebody paid attention
and fixed it.
But
you can never tell, because sometimes it's warranted. Sometimes the reshoots is indicative of a whole other bunch of problems.
But remember, we spoke with John Ottman at length about X-Men: Days of Future Past, and a couple days before it had to be fully delivered, John, being the editor that he is, I mean, he was doing two roles where he had to compose the film and edit the film. But he said, like, okay, this scene doesn't work. We have to create something new. And they had less than 6 hours to write it, script it, cast it, shoot it, and then put it into the movie, and then off it goes to the print. And so, but it's just one of those things. Like, okay, you got to do which make it good.
And looking at behind the scenes footage on this, it couldn't have been an easy movie to film. In fact, one of the things that I believe that they had to reshoot was the sequence where April O'Neil first comes across our heroes on the rooftop.
The four of them?
The four of them.
Right, okay.
And she's climbing up and she snaps the picture. Well, apparently, the way that I read it is they had everything set up, but they did not account for the turtle's height. So basically what ended up happening was all the sight lines were way off.
Oh, wow.
And it just didn't work. Yeah. And it looked silly. So you got, what are you going to do? Are you going to keep it in there and be Ed Wood about it?
No, you're going to digitize her eyes and move her eyelid.
Yeah, so I mean, I fix the problem.
Yeah.
I want to talk about that because I find it so fascinating. They did a performance capture. They're calling it now instead of just motion capture.
Oh, okay.
Performance capture.
Got it. All right.
And so, April and Megan Fox, Will Arnett, they all interacted with, the four turtles, and they had they had like pajama pants on with a little shell. Now, first off, they're not especially like Michael, they're all supposed to be like 6 foot tall. And I know Michelangelo, having met Noel Fisher, he's about my height, 5'7", 5'8", 5'9" at best. And so the sight line is going to be off right off the bat. So you have to count for that. I found it interesting too. He said this. I thought the reason they gave him the big backpacks, if you see those photos,
I have,
is to like make him feel the weight of a shell. It was light as a feather.
Yeah, I think
I
it
was so
just,
surprised.
Yeah, as an actor, you want to at least feel something to remind yourself that you have something back there. But that was interesting that they didn't do that.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how actually heavy it was, but it wasn't. You'd imagine it'd be heavy.
You'd want some heft to it, exactly.
Sure. But it wasn't.
So, but maybe again, to a mutant turtle, maybe it doesn't feel like anything.
Yeah, I found a great video. It seems like it would be something that would be put on the Blu-ray. And it's a really behind the scenes footage. Will Arnett and Megan Fox, narrate and host it, so to speak.
Oh, you're talking about the Nickelodeon special Inside the Action or something like that?
Yeah.
It's about 20 minutes.
Yeah.
It's available on YouTube.
That's what I have it. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's a great little. I'm sure it's going to end up on the DVD features because it's already it's ready to go.
Oh yeah, they'll just dump it on.
They talk about a lot of these various things, and the culmination of which they build up to how they made the snow. Right. Action sequence, and it was really good.
You know what? For something of that ilk that I found on the internet, it was better than I expected. But what I appreciated was watching the actors in these get-ups, and then taking it a step forward, watching the stunt people in those get-ups doing the martial arts and doing whatever it was that they were doing while wearing this shell and having the mobility and everything. And I was like, wow, that's really cool, because they are fighting on stage, and the way that it has to be filmed, it couldn't have been easy. Again, those shells would have had to have gotten in the way of something. I don't know. It was cool. And then they do a whole feature on my favorite sequence of the movie, which is the truck going down the mountain.
The snow.
The snow. Yeah. And, they feature that in that special, and it's really cool.
I want, in terms of that scene specifically, what I love is it utilizes every piece of filmmaking.
Oh yeah, that thing.
Like between motion capture, between CGI, between we're gonna shoot this part here, and we're gonna add this part that we filmed here together. Yeah. It's gonna mesh in the frame. They literally utilized everything.
Yeah. Everything. And one of my critiques about this movie is that they shot their wad with that scene. That should have been the end set piece, because I don't think the end set piece
didn't match that. You wanted it to rival
to that, because literally I was like, when that scene was done, even some kids were applauding. I was like, okay,
it's also a lot more fun than the end scene. I mean, there's so much more fun involved. First of all, Shredder's not even there.
No, I understand.
And who doesn't want to go down the hill on a toboggan or a turtle shell, whatever you want to call it?
But it was just, number one, it wasn't necessarily anything I had seen before.
Right.
So it looked great, and in watching the behind the scenes, knowing the work that went into it, I was like, they did a great job.
And to your point, how many times have we seen a battle sequence on top of a
and I talked about that at Dawn of the Planet. They end up on the top of a building rooftop with scaffolding falling, and it's getting cliche.
It goes back to the Lion King era.
Yeah.
It's true, right? Not Mufasa, Simba, and Scar.
Yeah.
They weren't in scaffolding.
Way back.
But, if you really... You
can
go
King
back
Kong
to King Kong.
Fair enough.
So, the original, by the way.
The original, yes.
Sarah, if you're listening.
But, and look, all the work that went into it, we are looking at a production budget of $125 million. It's all up on screen.
Yeah, definitely.
Right?
Yeah.
And then when you talk about your hard drives and advertising, it was $185 million. So, of course, these are estimated numbers, but it looked like a $125 million movie. They probably, if they even put in a little bit more, I wouldn't have known. And for 125 with as many reshoots that they had, that's actually sort of kind of cheap.
It is.
It can be.
Right? So Liebesman did a good job, containing this, and I think they did a good job at least creating a story that reboots now a new franchise. Hell, they already announced
exactly, the
release
sequel.
date.
Yeah.
And they announced that on Saturday or something. You know, it's out for 2 days. Hey, sequel.
Yeah, and it's for the most part it's the same team. It's certainly being written by the main two guys of this, Applebaum and
Nemec.
what's that?
Applebaum and Nemec.
Yeah. So you know, I always like it when the same group stays on for the next movie, and again we can kind of one of the things, you know, we'll be talking about Expendables. And with Sylvester Stallone, you know, one of the reasons he said he does all these kind of franchise movies is because, hey, in a TV show, you get to have an arc for your character. You get to spend seasons long with these characters, and you don't get that in movies. You get an hour and a half, maybe 2 hours. So, yeah, I want to tell the whole journey, you know, and go to 3-4 movies of this character.
Yet each of those have had a different director and I think even writer. Well, with the exception of Stallone.
Yeah.
But I think, in that, I would argue Stallone is the auteur.
Yeah.
You know, and so
obviously
he's the driving
behind
quote
the whole
unquote
thing,
baby. Now, gross wise, I mean, we're
over 100 million.
we're close. I would say we're anywhere 90, 95. So we're close to 100 million. Worldwide, it's about 120 million. You know, estimated. Not a bad haul. You know, it's on its way. And listen, I don't think that the word of mouth from the kids is going to be. You know, I think that they're going to go back.
They're going to tell all their friends to see it, and they're going to go see it again.
Yeah, they'll go see it again.
If for no other reason, they're going to want to go see the toboggan.
Yeah, that
number.
and of course, I'm sure Nickelodeon has not stopped promoting the movie.
No.
So and then, you know, when it comes out on home entertainment, you know, they'll be selling. In fact, Amazon, I just saw, is already advertising their special limited edition Blu-ray set that comes with, I believe it's Donatello maquette, in which the fans got to pick what Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle they wanted a statue of. And it's already posted as of, I think, yesterday. So, you know.
And I think, you know, we've talked about in terms of, you know, people nitpicking and things like that, but in terms of the Turtles, right, I want to go down the list of, like, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle staples, right? Obviously, there's the 4 Turtles, there's April, there's the van every now and then, which we got at the end. There's obviously Splinter, Shredder, New York, Pizza, them being Cowabunga, them being Goofballs.
Heroes on the Half Shell. We actually got,
you know, I like the Heroes in the Half Shell. I also liked how they did the Cowabunga. It's like, well, I wasn't gonna do this. Oh, and it's like Cowabunga, and I'm like, okay, we had to have a Cowabunga in this movie.
So they hit everything really well. We were talking about this before we went on air. In the first one, Domino's was the sponsor for the pizza.
Right.
In this one, it was Pizza Hut, and there was a lot of controversy. But I found it. What worked for me is it wasn't just there to be.
I never
there.
got that. This is what I don't know. It was pizza. It wasn't. I don't know why it matters if it's Domino's or pizza, because I never understood that. I never understood that it had to be a certain kind of pizza in any of the comics or the cartoons or anything. It was just pizza, wasn't it?
It was just pizza.
Yeah.
But obviously, you know, you got to take advantage of brand sponsorship in this movie.
Sure.
But when it worked because it was Michelangelo, and he's always been portrayed as the weaker of the 4,
right?
And because he's, you know, he can't contain himself, he's too funny, and that showed off really well. Hey, look at the cat.
Yeah. Exactly.
You know,
so that for me, I like, because I knew they all had distinct personalities, but I thought they highlighted them well enough. I mean, I know that a lot of other people are saying, no, they were so one-dimensional. I go, no, I didn't think so. I thought they showed them where they were and who they were, and I thought they did it nicely.
Yeah, and I felt that they also, you know, to me, going back to the cartoons and everything. Right. To me, the distinction was always not only just their demeanor, but it was their weapons as well.
Right.
And each one had their what they were the best at. You know, I wish there could have been maybe a little bit more showcasing them.
Yeah, that would have been nice. That would have been nice.
But to me, well, you know, going back to the 90s, that was a big distinguishing.
Again, in the toboggan ride, we had that nice moment with the long stick.
Yeah,
and that was great.
That
was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you know, and Michelangelo uses nunchucks to keep on the truck, and you know, it was just great. I felt enough distinction overall. I mean, what I like was it seemed, you know, I don't think they get the credit they deserve, because obviously to me the credits go, and Megan Fox and Will Arnett they're doing the full press tour and things like that. so the focus has been on them. But the 4 actors that did the Turtles, you know, they brought their own personality to it, and they really formed a chemistry. On set.
I agree, and though they are featured in that video that we were just talking about earlier, the 4 of them are, and I mean, it would have been nice. I mean, maybe I don't know why they didn't put them more in the forefront. Maybe they just wanted to hide the fact that they were actually being played by people. I don't know.
Yeah, it's one of those things. You know, they're highlighting the fact that. Again, with the 1990s Turtles, what was great about it is, okay, we have live-action Turtles that can do all this. That's the highlight.
Right.
With this, they could go a little bit closer and see personalities in the faces and things like that, but you don't want to necessarily know, you know, if it was John
break the illusion that it's a turtle. I think
with
that's
Dawn
what
of the Planet of the Apes, there's so much stuff about Andy Serkis, but
he's not out on a press tour.
Caesar's face.
Right.
You know, rather than like, oh, here's Andy Serkis' face.
And it's funny that you mentioned Planet of the Apes, too, because that was one of Liebesman's inspirations for taking on the role. It was after he saw Rise of the Planet of the Apes and what they were able to do with motion capture.
Performance capture.
So we're going to call it per cap.
Yeah, whatever.
That's going to be, for inventory purposes, that's going to be confusing. But he was like, wow, if they can do this... Because that would be so much fun to be able to take the technology and maybe we can make some great looking turtles. Now, some of the critique has been at the expense of the look of the turtles, which I had no problem with. One of the lists that I had said, they were of nightmare origin. Like they were going to cause nightmares for kids. And I'm like, I don't think so. They were a little bit bigger than I would have thought. Like I never looked at the turtles being 6 foot plus, towering, but I still didn't have a problem with it.
I don't think they're going to cause any nightmares. I didn't get that from it. I mean, so I don't know what that was all about.
I mean, part of it, I could see, you know, if you're thinking about, okay, how big can they be? How big should they be? Partly it was, to me, script-wise, a practical sense, because how many times do they block bullets for April? Yeah. You know, and okay, you can't have a 5'5" turtle, and then here's a bullet whizzing by right in the head of April O'Neil.
Well, I did.
That would be nightmarish for kids.
Well, like here, and this came from BuzzFeed.
Had they always been bulletproof, by the way?
Is that a new thing? We've never done bullets before.
No, we've never done bullets before, and I appreciate it. That showed me the strength of their skin and or shell. We know it's a hard shell to crack, but I did appreciate how there was that sort of kind of, you need more than a gun to take one of these guys down, and that they could turn around, protect whoever with their shell. Yeah. But it even appeared like the skin of their body looked very resilient too.
Absolutely.
So,
and of course they're throwing around shipping containers like they're nothing. So.
Right. So they had good strength within them. So, but it was in a BuzzFeed news that the new turtles look like total nightmare fuel. And I was like, none of the kids in my audience seem to be afraid of anything. Well, they loved it.
Well, they didn't look all cuddly, but I don't think they looked nightmarish. I mean, they had kind of, snot running out of their nostrils all the time. Not snot, just this glistening, shall we say.
I was fine with the way the new performance capture looked. How about you? You know?
Yeah, I was nervous from the trailers. It didn't seem to match what I knew of Planet of the Apes, but that's because I also went to see Planet of the Apes. I've already seen one, right? And by that point, as soon as it came time for the movie, I'd seen the other one, and then as I watched it, I was like, you know what? This looks good. It's different from Dawn of the Planet of the Apes, but it looks good, and I can get behind it. And I could see where they sacrificed the overall body stuff, they were able to go closer. And the only criticism that I would have is I love the moments like in the elevator.
No, that was great. Love the elevator.
If they had more moments like that, that would have made it even better.
Yeah. I agree. I loved that moment. I thought that was hysterical. I was like, what? And exactly. It started out, I flashed back to Captain America. And that when he's in the elevator and there's that moment where it's just nothing's happening, and then they kick into, and I was just having a ball, and everybody in the audience loved it. They started, bumping along.
Yeah, no, it plays good, and I think too when you're talking about Dawn of the Planet of the Apes, we do have a preconception of what a gorilla looks like, what a chimpanzee looks like. Yeah, we already know what they look like, so to take it to that next step. They
And
did
do
a
it
great
with
job.
turtles.
But we don't know what, we've never seen a turtle stand
No.
up on its hind legs and walk around. So you got to give them a little bit of license in how they're going to bulk them up and whatnot. So, I thought they looked fine. I appreciated the look. You got to match the looks with the personalities. And when we're talking about the actors that played them, those actors really did give those characters their life. And I thought they did a great job in selecting the actors to play the turtles. Each one to me did have a personality, but if the turtles didn't have a good personality, it wouldn't have mattered how they looked. They would have looked, I would have said total special effect, they're bland, boring, enough. But the personality showed through.
Well, the question I have, since I don't know the original,
It captured the performance,
there you
would
go.
you say?
Oh,
I
okay.
would
So, but because you know the original so well, did they carry across those? Did they capture those personalities well in this new version?
Each one had a great personality, and I think it matched it.
And I think that credit
One of-
goes back to the original creators, Eastman and Laird.
One of my criticisms would be that every movie seems to be very Raphael heavy. And in this one too, he was the one that ultimately rescued them. I don't know. I could flip a coin between him and Michelangelo, because Michelangelo's stuff is the stuff that we remember certainly for this movie because he was so damn funny.
Yeah.
But Raphael was the one that didn't get caught and had to save everybody. Now, partly it's because of his personality, where he's always a loner, and so he takes himself out of the group.
Yeah.
And then the three of them get captured, and he's the one that obviously is free to save them.
But they use that as part of the arc about I mean, I thought
they
that worked.
they got to be brothers.
They have to be brothers, and he has to come to the realization that I'm so scared of losing you. That's why I separate myself. I mean, I think that worked.
Isn't Raph, though, if memory serves, isn't he sort of kind of like the one to look up to? Isn't he sort of like the leader?
No, that's Leonardo.
That's Leonardo.
Yeah.
And they did that well. And they had that sibling rivalry between the two because Ralph wants to be that guy.
And that I don't ever remember happening either. A sibling rivalry.
There was.
There was.
Especially it's always been with Raphael.
Yeah.
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 And Donatello and Michelangelo are the typical ones, like they're fighting again.
Exactly. Yeah. So
Time to go eat
Yeah.
chips.
That works
All right,
great.
Phil, here's a question for you. What did you think about the whole retooling of April O'Neil actually knowing the Turtles in her childhood? Like,
And
'cause
she's the one that saved him.
Yeah, because that's a whole new wrinkle in the origin of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Personally, I was like, okay, if you're going to retool it, that's not a bad way to go. It didn't bother me. But you as close to purist, what did you think?
I don't know, hardly, but
Well, you know more. I mean, literally talking
on this
with
panel,
you,
you're the purist.
Yeah, you're the purist.
fair enough. I think it could have been handled a little bit better.
Okay.
And by that I mean it needed just a little bit. That part could used a little bit more breath. But other than, I thought it was fine. To me, the only weak part, honestly, would have been Splinter, only because he didn't match quite the personality of everything else, and because he's so tied into that part of the story and he's explaining it and giving her praise, it wasn't as warranted. But the idea to me was fine.
Yeah,
Just the execution
having
wasn't
not
quite there.
Speaking for somebody who didn't know the origin story, I thought that it worked. Origin story, excuse me, but it worked for this movie. I completely okay. I mean, I bought it.
It just gives her another stake in it. Because in order, especially you're kind of looking at it. Okay, how do we make her like the Turtles even faster? Because we want to get to some of this other stuff. Okay, well if we create a natural connection from a childhood, then that simplifies things.
Yeah, that gets there faster.
Yeah,
So.
yeah. I mean, again, just what I do know about their origins and the comic book and the ooze and all that, how they repurposed it for this particular incarnation and going forward, I didn't have a problem with it.
I'm sure a lot of people did.
Well, but it was one of the things that I don't recall reading criticism.
Oh,
about.
really? Oh, great. Okay.
I mean, I read criticism about Shredder, about them potentially being aliens, about the look, but I didn't. I mean, in case I missed it, which I could have in my research, but I didn't see that there was too much criticism about. Like, they were injected with an ooze. It just didn't fall in
let's
the
talk about, there's a bigger controversy. Let's talk about just Megan Fox in general. And then I do want to talk about the casting, the rest of the movie. But Megan Fox I don't think, unless I'm wrong, I don't think people knew that it would be more of an April O'Neil story from the get-go.
Right.
And people just in general,
You think she got a lot of heat for that because they wanted it to be more about the Turtles? Is that what you...
I think it's that. And then also, just like there's Michael Bay haters, there's equal Megan Fox haters and controversy surrounding that.
Yeah.
What's your guys' stance on Megan Fox?
I don't know her personally, of course, but I don't know that I'm a hater. I'm not. I don't really...
I thought could she play in a movie like Beginning Again? Probably not. Before sad, so sorry to say that.
Nah.
But for this movie, I thought she did a good job.
She was okay. I don't think a lot of people are saying she's just horrible, and I wouldn't say go so far that she was horrible. There was a couple scenes I was like, but they weren't cringeworthy. But it was like, she forced tears. But overall, once the story kicked in, she was serviceable. You can put it that way.
I'm just gonna say, what are you looking for out of that character? I mean, you could have almost put anybody in there. She was serviceable. She was fine. To your point, there was nothing about her that made me go, "Oh, she sucks." Like I didn't do that at all.
But on the other side of it, there wasn't anything like, "Wow, she was," because and how could you in this kind of movie? But there are certain actors, no matter what you put them in, they're able to bring something where you just go, "Wow, that was great."
I'm not sure, given the material, I'm not sure one of my favorite actresses, Amy Adams, could have come out looking that much better. I'm just saying, like, for what Megan Fox brought to the role. She was fine. She was very serviceable.
One of the things, they made her out to have her, have more strength and things of that nature. And I felt that she did deliver that. Her angst about she went to college and, she wasn't getting the right stories and she was taking the initiative herself.
The plucky reporter.
I got behind that. And, when she takes the initiative and she's helping with Raphael and she recruits Vern to make sure that, they have the van because that's all his only purpose in life.
Exactly.
Is to drive them around. There was a strength to her that, and the other ones, I guess you could argue that there. I don't know, not to this degree. She really was a go-getter in this movie.
Yeah,
and whether or not it's reflective of her acting or just of what's there,
it was just the part. Some of the strange choices, like, okay, so you're gonna have her ride a bike around New York City. It's like, all right, I don't buy that at all, but okay. That just seemed odd to me. And then who decided it was good to have her have those 3-inch eyelashes? I mean, just little things, which does nothing to do with her performance. But I'm just going, what are they thinking?
It was Megan Fox. When she was riding her bike at in the middle of the night to that warehouse thing, I'm like going,
oh yeah, okay,
yeah, it's
sure,
gonna work.
And in the last thing, she's wearing leather pants riding a bike. Yeah, okay.
So
that's for the kids.
I'm sure.
It could be for the adults too, I suppose.
What are you talking about?
And nothing.
Yeah.
What do I know? And her chemistry too with Will Arnett, I thought was fine. I'll tell you, if I was gonna point at acting, sort of.
I didn't think they had any chemistry.
Well, see, I thought they were fine.
Only because the reason why I don't say they don't have any chemistry is because. Will's character, I forgot what Vern. Thank you. He wants there to be chemistry, but she's not interested. So there was for me, there was like, but that's okay. That's why it worked. But I didn't see any chemistry.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't. Again, I thought for the purposes of this movie, I thought they were fine. The one that sort of stuck out to me was Whoopi Goldberg.
Yeah, I was like,
that one.
What?
And I understand she took the role because her kids loved Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
Fine.
But if you're gonna take a role, at least try to take a role that means something. Because that could have been played by anybody.
Yeah.
And if you're gonna take, at least do something that's worthwhile to say, hey, I was in a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle movie. That was the one that sort of kind of stuck out like a sore thumb to me. So,
I'd agree.
You think her kids will mind that she's the one that doesn't really believe in the turtles in the movie? You know what I mean? Instead of like, Mommy, why are you hating on the turtles? Why don't you believe in the turtles? They're real. They're right there.
Yeah.
And Will Fichtner, he's making a name for himself for playing villains.
Yeah. Although
know
he's
he
done
can
some
play-
really good sides on the other side of the aisle. I mean, he's had some really good turns as being a good
I
guy,
know.
whatever. It's amazing. He's good range.
I worked on Contact.
Yeah, I
I
was
saw
gonna say,
him
that's the one I
work,
was gonna
and
say, yeah.
he was really good.
Yeah.
As the Blinds.
Yeah, exactly. On Contact.
Which is sort
and
of
with
ironic.
many other films, by the way.
No, but
He's got some good range.
You know, he could be really good, but his past couple of turns has been as a villain. Last year, Lone Ranger.
Yeah.
Butch Cavendish.
Did not
he
see
was.
that.
Yeah.
You're lucky. You dodged a bullet.
Hey.
Hi-oh.
But they
in this
again,
movie-
and there was something about the fact that the Shredder and Eric, they didn't. I don't think they used those well, because they could have been one character. Now that would have killed everybody. I mean, the original fans would have hated that. But it was like they didn't really use either of those characters to their fullest, and that's what bothered me about the story and the script and the way they put it together. I don't think they did that real well. That wasn't handled very deftly. So because each character didn't get a full, like you were talking, I mean, there's no backstory, really understanding why and stuff, and so those things were missing for me. And it's like, if you didn't have to use both of them, you shouldn't have, because then you could have really brought out the other side of one of them.
Yeah, with Will Fichtner's character, I actually thought that was going to lead up to.
Yeah.
I thought he was going I thought he was going to be bigger.
Yeah, and it didn't go anywhere. It was like,
no.
okay, he really is just there to serve plot. He doesn't
Right.
really have anything, and that was, for me, that's a mistake in the overall scheme of the movie, because I like when you might as well have something to hang on to with them, and it's like, oh, okay, he's just there to, okay, that's all he's doing is for moving the story ahead, but there's nothing behind it.
I would agree.
So-
I mean, that I think, had that happened, we would be talking about this movie, that it was really that much better.
Yeah, it would have really elevated it a little bit.
Yeah, but again, when your target audience is 10 to 12 years old,
yeah, they're not
they
going
don't
to care.
care and
No.
they love it. You know, you're talking about schmucks like ourselves who go into the movies, and I didn't hate it for it.
I didn't hate it for that. I'm just saying
and
you could have still brought all those youngsters along and kept us who aren't 10 and 13 could have really
14.
been 14 or whatever exactly. Could have had us really getting in if you had done a little bit more character development, because I don't think the kids would have minded that. That's not like they would have hated the movie for it, but it would have brought us in much faster, deeper. We would have enjoyed it more.
I want to
think
say
we're asking too much for them to do a Marvel job, like with the Guardians of the Galaxy.
That's a pun, marvelous.
Marvel. I just think that out of a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle movie, maybe we'd be asking for too much. Not that we don't deserve it.
Maybe, but here's the thing:
but,
it was an hour and 41. You had time. You could have done it. It's not. I'm not asking for 30 extra minutes.
Yeah.
I'm just a moment here and there to really kind of flesh that out.
Well, I think this is a good example of, well, it's a terrible example, but I think they were moving at such a fast pace to try to get this done.
Sure.
It's one of those, like, when you're rushing, you never really get a chance to really step back and take a look at the whole thing, to the point that, okay, when marketing came along and we're over in Australia, we got September 11th posters.
Yeah, no, exactly.
Right.
That, you know what I mean? Like,
Oops.
Obviously a horrendous mistake.
Yeah.
But it's yes, someone's got to be at fault and someone's got to take the blame. But inevitably, it's because everyone's just moving at 100 miles an hour, and that, like, things just have to get done and be, hit the release date. And that,
even though
me,
you keep moving it.
yeah, that to me was the most glaring. Because again, I looked at that, I'm like, oh, they just didn't have time to really think about that.
But a lot of that too, when you're talking about a poster, a lot of that is on the studio level.
Yeah.
Like, that is not in the quote unquote production level. Like, the studio, they are thinking ahead about their marketing campaigns. What's this going to look like?
Yeah.
And I'm sure that when they're rushing to try to get an international poster
that's not on the
out,
filmmakers.
like, that has, that is definitely in the marketing side where, the studios say, hey, we need a poster. It was a good looking poster.
Just not the right.
You don't need a building exploding on it.
Yeah. And I'm not sure if that release date got changed. But
they changed the poster.
Yeah, well, and which makes sense. And I'm sure it wasn't due to insensitivity on somebody's part. They just weren't thinking.
No.
And hence you get that Australia poster. But yeah, they were working fast and hard. And
to be fair, there's probably Australia has no affinity towards September 11th that we know of.
Right.
Well.
No, I know what you're
Anyway,
saying, but
I'm gonna get comments.
Yeah,
for that.
no, they were very, very gracious in their concern over us during that time.
Yes.
So, but yeah, I'm just saying that these things, sometimes somebody gets overlooked. And the sad thing about that is that poster was approved up to the highest level.
Yeah.
And
and nobody caught it.
Got fired.
Yeah.
Some schmuck who's making 25, peanuts a year probably took the blame for putting that in there. That's probably the sad reality of that.
So that it is. Maybe there was a note that just fell off. How many times?
Yeah. Oops. No, I said take it out.
Yeah, I meant can't. We can't do that. I'm sorry, I wrote can, but I meant can't.
Except for an apostrophe and a T, this would be a different story.
Now, what did you think of the, we talked about its brevity being an hour and 40 minutes, right? I thought the editing, Joel Negron and Glenn Scantlebury did a good job.
I did too, except for some of the action sequences. I didn't like the way they were shot. I thought they were framed too well, too tight, and I also didn't like. There were some
Did
that
you like
just
the
looked
cinematography
messy.
with the angle?
Some of
They
it,
used some of the sometimes they were tilted on purpose.
Yeah, that part was okay, but part of it that what I wanted, when you see, because they're ninjas, I want to see them doing their ninja stuff. And sometimes the filming of it, the framing of it, and the editing of it, you didn't really get to enjoy it enough because it was a little too frenetic, and they were cropped a little too tight. It's one of the things I had problems I had with Guardian is that there were a couple of fight sequences. They were so tight in their framing that you didn't really get to see there was no context.
With Guardians, I could buy it. With this, because it's CGI, you can afford to go wider.
Yeah. You can, and that's my point. Is like, what are you doing? And I wanted a little bit more of that, where you get to see them doing their ninja stuff. Because some of the fights, it's like they weren't really ninja stuff. It was just whatever. Anyway.
Well, I think there is something to be said about the 1990s version.
Mm-hmm.
They had these costumes on.
Right.
They couldn't necessarily. They can't move quickly.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't animate the costumes in any way. You actually did get to see their fight.
Yeah.
The mere fact that they were able to walk and step up things without falling over in 1990,
that's a win.
That's a win. So that they have a katana blade or a long, a long stick or nunchucks. To me, it was, however choreographed it was. I was like, I remember the first time seeing it, going, "Geez, I didn't expect
them to be able to do all that." Yeah.
And
what about here though?
Here, I thought it was okay. There were scenes where it was a little bit dark.
Yeah.
Having a tough time seeing things, but I didn't, again, I think the way that it was edited, it looked, I thought the pacing was fine, especially, again, going back to that truck scene, especially watching that special and seeing how it was put together, amazing.
Yeah, it was a long, it was a really long set piece.
Yeah.
And you're going, and it just keeps going, but even though it's a long one, and in the movie I'm going, wow, this is long. It didn't bother me because it was still kind of fun and exciting.
Good. Yeah.
I appreciate it in the final sequence. I appreciate the fact of when Leonardo goes like, "Nobody lets go," and it just harkens back to what was the room that they were, the torture chamber?
Yeah,
room
exactly.
Splinter.
I forgot what it's called, the Hodge, whatever it was.
Hodgepodge room.
Yeah, whatever. Yeah, I can't remember what the name of it was. When
so
they're being disciplined by.
Yeah, so I did like that part of it, but I mean, Shredder kept his knives going at them, and had we tied in just sort of a lesson that they had yet to learn, that they finally learn in the final battle.
The only thing that's close to that is what was it called? The stepping on each other. I forgot what it's called.
The hop.
Hop, skip, jump. I don't know.
And they made a big deal about naming it, and that was the only thing that was the callback to how they didn't do it before, and this time they did. So there was that moment, but you're right. I agree. If those moments, which I thought they did. I thought it was smart to do. They didn't really spend enough time on them to really have them come to fruition, at least as much as I would want to. Now, again, I don't think the 10 and 14-year-olds cared, but for the rest of us, if you'd taken a little time with those things and really bring those up, I think that would have really been something.
Yeah, I mean, I did get, and I too suffer from the same deficiency. I forget, it was like the hop something.
Yeah. Hop, skip, jump, we'll call it.
Yeah, whatever.
Leapfrog.
Yeah.
There you go. I think that's it.
Yeah. But I did like when it came up at the end, I said, okay, the reason why they had a problem with this at the beginning is because they weren't working together
as a team.
Now they're working together. Now they're brothers in arms, literally. They can get this done. I will say, albeit cliche, the scaffolding scene, it was a cool bait and switch. I sort of kind of saw it coming, but when each is giving out their their epitaph saying, "I'm sorry, I love you," whatever. And then who was the final one? Raphael was going on and on and on.
Yeah.
I was saying they would have had to have landed, but I mean, this is going on forever. Like this is wow. And then when the camera pulls back and they're already like on the ground, I was like, yeah, that's sort of funny. It's, it's even though you can see it coming. It was.
At least they made it work.
And everybody, like I said, the kids just applauded at the end. So, story schmory. They don't care. And,
no, they don't.
And I cared just enough.
Yeah. Let me ask you. Okay, so as we're talking about this, one of the things that I had a problem with, we see the hand of Shredder.
Right.
Yeah.
And he goes like that, and it's a very quick shot. So if you're not paying attention, you could miss it. Saturday we.
Wait a minute, I did miss it. What about it? Other than that,
that's all that happened.
That's it? Oh, because he dipped his finger in the thing. You were talking about the end.
Yeah.
I thought you were talking about somewhere else in the movie as opposed to when he's in the. Okay.
And then we kind of we wrap up the movie. A little bit after that, but without seeing any of them, knowing that there's a sequel. I mean, here's the thing: do we always have to have Shredder be the main villain? Yeah. Is he going to be the main villain? Is he alive? How does he get out of this? And it better not be Secret of the Ooze type stuff.
Well, it's very funny that you say that because Jonathan Liebesman and the producers have already hinted. They've actually said that they would like to visit Dimension X.
Oh.
In the sequel.
Is that good? Phil, is that good?
I mean, here's the thing. What do you guys know of Dimension X?
I know nothing.
I know it's the talking brain.
Yeah, it's Crane. It's there's an incarnation where there's like there's almost crazier teenagers than the Turtles that come through, but they're on our side, so we're there to help them. Shredder wants to take them down, and then we get the Crane's lackeys. So it could be a little bit wacky, but it could work.
Well, I'm conflicted because I didn't really know Shredder here, so it would be interesting for me to know really what the heck he's trying to do.
I don't. As much as Shredder's always in all the things, but I don't really know Shredder.
I know, but I mean, but that's okay. But then do something with him. Otherwise, who cares? Because I didn't get enough of him to really want him. I'm much more interested in what else you got? What other villain do they have to overcome?
Well, yeah.
Technically, there's no. I don't really know of another.
Krang.
That's it. But again, they only had the one.
But Shredder is his main.
Was the main.
But even he controlled Crane, even though Crane talked to Shredder and gave him stuff to do, and it just always was Shredder.
Oh, okay.
Just like that part of the reason why I don't like Superman, to be honest, is because it's always like Lex Luthor.
Right.
Like how many times does
it go up against Lex?
Come on.
Well, it would have been nice to see a Metallo or a Bizarro. Yeah, like I'll agree with you there. But according to them, they wouldn't mind going big sci-fi, and bringing Dimension X into the story. I hope I was half expecting to see whether or not they were going to introduce to us Casey Jones, because I always liked that character in the cartoon and such.
Casey Jones he's a sports loving guy that uses items as weapons, and especially hockey.
Yeah.
Okay.
And he's Jason, he always wears like a hockey mask type of thing, and he beats people up with this hockey stick. Humorous. It's a funny character, a cool character. And then I was thinking, geez, if they added him, it would have been too much.
In this movie, yes.
Yeah,
in the second one, if they add him, okay, we'll see how it fits. But this one, I see no place for him.
No, and we already talked about
because he would have been Fichtner he was the night guard security man when April was. I don't know an explanation where he would fit.
Right,
and just be ridiculous.
It would have been too much. So, what did we think about the music? Brian Tyler, who seems. I
didn't notice it.
I didn't either.
Yeah,
but I never do.
That doesn't mean it's bad.
No, it doesn't. Yeah, for me anyway, because I never really paid attention. I don't.
Unless it's like a staple of the thing, again, like Begin Again, you notice the music. Guardians of the Galaxy, you notice the music.
Yeah, it's a big part of it.
Well, the guy works a ton because he was into the Storm.
Move on.
Just came out.
Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Expendables 3. He's doing Fast and Furious 7,
Jeez.
Age of Ultron.
He's literally got like
Iron
3
Man
movies
3.
coming out Within 2
Yeah.
weeks.
Yeah.
Wow.
I mean, the guy works. So, but like you folks, I didn't notice, like, nothing really stuck out about the music to me. But
The only music that stuck out was their elevator performance. That's the only
That
thing
was
I really
great.
remember.
Yeah.
yeah.
I mean, apart from like the theme song, and I don't, there's no place you could have put it without it being just ridiculously cheesy.
Thought they were going to do it at the end. I was hoping they were going to do it.
I
at the
thought
end.
honestly because
During the end credits.
I thought Michelangelo was going to come up with it. Hey, listen, I got this thing, and that's how you get it because it's cheesy, and you could see him coming up with something like that.
Yeah.
But I didn't miss it.
Yeah,
it wasn't there.
I was really hoping for at least
really?
one Go Ninja Go. Not really.
Well, I mean, the reason why we got Go Ninja was because people thought, oh, look at these costume people.
Right.
And people loving them. Go with it.
Yeah.
Go Ninja. Is there anything else you guys want to talk about this movie, or have we overall covered it? I know we kind of went every which way.
Yeah,
we went a million miles an hour. We didn't quite cover the story as much as we normally do. But
we didn't.
There's too much backstory to do that necessarily. But I mean, what scene stood out to you that you liked, or
Well, we talked a lot about the
snow scene.
The snow scene, and that was the most fun. It just was.
I like the train stuff. I liked her pursuit of the turtles, and I like the train scene because in the first movie we have a train fight scene, and this one's very different, and I enjoy those certain elements. I like in terms of the foot. They redesigned the foot a little bit, and I appreciate that because they used to be like in purple pajamas too. We've evolved.
Yeah, which you would hope. I mean, for me, it goes to the truck scene. My favorite line is are they aliens? No, that would be stupid. I like that line a lot, only because of the controversy that came up prior.
Yeah.
And again, like for me, the movie, it didn't make me angry. I walked out, sort of reminded me of the original one. Some of the humor in it was a little bit smarter than I expected it to be, and I actually laughed, including like the elevator sequence. Yeah. So, all in all, like I thought the turtles were fine. I appreciated what they did with the performance capture. Don't jump down my throat, motion capture. But I appreciated what they did with the turtles. I didn't mind that they had a different look to them. Look, if you're going to reboot, there are certain things you got to sort of kind of go, okay, I'm going to have to be okay with this.
Yeah.
And for the most part, I was okay with it. They've already announced the sequel, and, here we go. Cowabunga.
Johnny, any last thoughts? For you?
I can honestly say I probably wouldn't have seen it had it not been for Phil. It's just not a movie that I would have gone to see.
And we also didn't talk about it switched from This was a new line,
right?
And now Paramount's releasing it,
right?
So and that goes with the Nickelodeon.
Yeah, I mean the rights were bought in 2009.
Yeah,
by Nickelodeon. So
that's new to the franchise as well.
I think they did exactly what they needed to reboot the series to a whole new audience and to bring as much of an older audience with them. And anytime you do that, you're going to have people loving it and hating it and a whole bunch of people in between. So.
And you know what, to be honest, I really don't care for the Transformers. That to me just says Michael Bay. But this, as much as it's Michael Bay production, there's some staples of Michael Bay that are evident in the movie because he had a hand in it. But at the end of the day, I didn't look at it like, oh, this is definitely a Michael Bay movie. I didn't know, And I know that's a big controversy for people of like, oh, Michael Bay, another Michael Bay movie. And I can't wait for the comments about like, oh, you Michael Bay loving assholes.
Oh, please. I almost want to stay mute on the topic, but I think it's just unfair to diss this movie just because his name's on it. I mean, they didn't do that to Texas Chainsaw Massacre, which I think was a Platinum Dunes, which is Michael Bay. Friday the 13th, people didn't say, which I believe was Platinum Dune, which is Michael Bay's company. They didn't mind those movies, and now it's a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle movies, and I know it's coming out close after this last Transformer movie, but so what? Like, I'm gonna argue, if you don't think that the going down the mountain and snow truck scene was an effective scene for a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle movie, then what are you looking for? What are you expecting out of a movie that's called the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles?
That's the thing I couldn't come as I'm reading all this. I go, you do know what the name of the movie is. You do know what it's about. You do know who their target audience is, and you know what they're trying to achieve. What are you thinking it's going to be anything else? I mean, even me, I'm watching it and I'm realizing, gosh, wish I could have a little more story development, a little more character development. That'd have been much more fun for me. But it's not really made for me. I still enjoyed the movie, but for those people who are wanting it to be all kinds of things, I go, are you kidding? What do you expect?
Same here. The title says it all.
I like how they do play around with that. We're ninjas. We're turtles. We're mutant. Oh, and we're teenagers.
We're teenagers too.
You're ninja mutant turtle teenagers?
Yeah.
No, that's stupid too. When you put it like that.
It is. I mean, that's if you're gonna go to this movie, you should just go thinking, okay, turn your mind off a little bit, just go for the popcorn and enjoy it got some great effects. They have some fun lines in it. It's funny, it's interesting, and you can enjoy it for just that. And if you do so, I think you'll have a good time. If you're trying to expect it to be something else or high art, forget it.
Yeah. This isn't Guardians of the Galaxy. It's not Edge of Tomorrow. It's Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
It's not Begin Again.
It's not Begin Again.
Yeah. So.
Yeah.
Anyway, thank you guys for joining us yet again on another Anatomy of a Movie. Demetri, for the second time.
Second week, I'm still on
Second
Twitter.
week in a row.
Oh my God, they didn't kick you off yet? That's
are you
great.
kidding me? Well, I have I think I have 9 followers, but 15 of them have blocked me.
And they can find, where can more people block you?
At dmovies1701. So at dmovies1701. I got the sympathy follow. Our good engineer JT. He's fantastic. He's been great. So yeah, it's been fun. I like following a ton of people, and I like to retweet certain things. So
go Ninja, go Ninja, go.
Thanks for playing that. That's
we got John Comerford, who can only be found on Anatomy of a Movie.
That's right.
And follow us here, speaking of Anatomy, on Twitter at Movie Anatomy, anatomyofmovie.com. We're doing lots of movies. We did Guardians of the Galaxy last week. We're switching things up today. We're no longer doing Into the Storm. We're going to do a Robin Williams special. We got a lot of stuff coming up. We got The Giver. We got Expendables 3. A lot of good stuff to look forward to. Thank you guys for joining us.
Before we go, and I have to note that the Anatomy of a Movie, which I'm very honored and so ecstatic to be part of this, they don't even follow me.
Hey, we're very selective.
I don't think we follow anybody.
No.
Yeah.
We follow like 3 people.
Yeah, I'm not one of them.
Maybe in due time.
Yeah.
Once you get more clout in the Twitter world.
Oh, clout.
Anyway, thank you guys for joining us. As you can hear, Vanilla Ice's Go Ninja Go. We had to bring it back. Thank you, JT. We'll see you guys for the next Anatomy of a Movie dissection.
Now we have to get.
Producers Maria Menounos, Kevin Undergaro, Phil Svitek, and the rest of the Anatomy of a Movie staff, we would like to thank you for listening and subscribing to the show. If you have any questions or comments, feel free to email or tweet us. I'm Sir Richard Wentworth, and this has been Anatomy of a Movie.
Thanks for watching Anatomy of a Movie on YouTube. For more on your favorite movies, subscribe to our channel here, and be sure to let us know what you think in our comment section below here. Bye.